All right, since we have a quorum, I am going to call the Village Finance Advisor and Enhancement Committee meeting to order July 7th. Roll call, please.
Trustee Thuzius,
Here.
committee member Hillebrand, committee member Henry,
Here.
committee member Cutler,
Here.
committee member Hicks, and President Langfeld.
Here. All right, we're at public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the Finance Advisory and Enhancement Committee. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes while the Finance Advisory and Enhancement Committee encourage input from residents. It may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda. I don't believe we have anybody, unless there's someone sitting in your office.
Nope, there's nobody on and I didn't get anything beforehand or.
All right, we will move on to general business discussion and possible approval of the June 2nd, 2021 Finance Advisory and Enhancement Committee minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of our meeting on June 2nd. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Minutes have been approved. Number 2, the leaf pickup program. I'm going to just continue through, even though the 2 main players are not here, but I have talked to them individually on this. So I'll just kind of bring the group up to date on that. So as many of you know, the board did approve this program, so we're going to be moving forward. Our timeline is really pretty tight, but here's where we're at with these 4 areas. So the first one you see is the educational part. My newsletter item is due on Friday, so I will spend the majority of the time of my article being on this program and letting people know. And then I will try to get this to be on our website so people can refer to it. The other part, and I know Tim has agreed to do this, he is writing up the letter that will go to residents. So I'll make sure by the time our August meeting is, you'll see that letter, because shortly after that meeting, we'll have to get it out to the residents in the test area. The other part is we'll also try to send out what we can, and I'm going to try to get the local newspaper to put in an article about both the test area and also what we'd like to do at the drop-off center of having leaves only, and then another category for other type. I'm meeting with Jerry on Friday at 9 o'clock to go over the logistics down there and a few other items that I'll hit as we move through this. So can anybody think of any other way we can get the education component out? It really needs to happen this month, next month, and early probably September. Well, if you come up with another way, let me know. Or I think we'll also have some literature at the office, but I will definitely go door to door, and I'm even thinking of doing that twice before we actually start. So there's so people know. So then the next category is the data collection. And I was probably going to assign Molly to put together a survey for the people who live in the test area. And then we might, and that's something we can talk about later. This one's not as important in the next 2 months, but maybe we send something out village wide to try to get a handle on what people thought of the pilot program down at the shop where we divide out the leaves and stuff, just to get a pick from that. I will work with Jerry and I'll be responsible for the work logs that we'll have both village staff do when they collect the leaves in the neighborhood and also collect the leaves at the shop, you know, and it'll be a pretty simple, I'm looking at it, but again, I'll have a draft for you at the August meeting, but I'm going to try to keep it somewhat simple because it is staff and I don't want them to have to spend, you know, a lot of time filling out surveys. It'll be more on how much time spent, how was the compliance, you know, probably not more than 7-8 questions, just so we get some data. And again, if you have some data point that you think is important, if you can shoot it to me, that would be important to either include in the surveys or the work log. It'll depend on where we should collect that from, either staff doing the work or the end user, the resident. So try to keep that in mind. And if you can get it to me in the next week or two, that would be really helpful. The next is the assets needed. And I guess I'll take responsibility for that. And that's basically working with Jerry on getting the vacuum, you know, modifying the trucks and getting the space down at the shop divided so people know in the signage, so people know which side to put just leaves and what to put yard waste. Update on that vacuum. Unfortunately, it's still sitting in Minnesota. It's got to go to Minnesota to Menominee Falls. Well, they will recondition it and then we pick it up from Menominee Falls. So I'll try to do what I can to make sure we get that piece of equipment down here by the time we need to use it. Are there any questions on either, I'm sorry, on either the data collection or the assets needed? Okay. And then the process is probably not the best way. What I'm looking at is getting a timeline done, making sure we know kind of how this is going to work. And I guess I'll need to work a little bit with Jerry on that, on the logistic. To me, what we should try to do is pick up the leaves on Mondays, giving people the weekend to rake and get them along the curb. We pick them up Monday, so there's, you know, and then if the weather's bad, we go Tuesday, but get them picked up as soon as possible so they're not sitting and people are tempted to rake them into the street to save their yard, you know, so the grass doesn't die underneath. But I'll talk to Jerry on that, but I think we need to do that. Then we have to kind of look at, are we picking them up once a week, or like other communities, they kind of do it whenever needed and whenever the weather is good. But I think really I should probably bring in Jerry on that and see what his thoughts are on that. Anybody got some thoughts right now on how you think we should do it?
Well, I think you asking Jerry is the right thing, because I think conditions have so much to do with it, whether it's wind or rain. You know, being on a Monday just may be impractical. So I would ask Jerry.
All right.
Yeah, I almost feel like every week makes sense, you know, and if they, you know, if they only do one or two, or, you know, it's hard if there's not consistency, because people don't know when to do it. And if they're not sure, you know, if you're going to come around every week, then they're like, well, should I do it? And, you know, if they know you're going to come around every week and you got a test area, you know, they're going to budget the time, and if it's there, they're going to pick it up. So that seems to be a logical approach.
Okay. All right, then I won't, I'll kind of leave it as we're gonna pick them up almost like whenever the weather is good. Because I think that's how other communities do it. They don't have necessarily they drive around on a good day and pick up the leaves that are there. My only worry is if someone's leaves are sitting for 3-4 days, I don't want them to rake them into the street. But I guess they could always do a phone call too. I mean, we're still small enough. We do it with brush pickup, so. All right, I'll talk to Jerry. That'll be one of the things I talked to Jerry on Friday about. We have decided, I don't know if you listened to the board, but we're going to take the funds out of the fund balance account. So that's where the funding's coming from. So we really don't have to worry too much about that. Any questions on that? I'm pretty excited about getting this thing moving. I think it'll be very interesting. All right. I don't have any real action. Let's, I'm just so everybody knows, and obviously the two main players I'll reach out to. I really would like this wrapped up in the sense of a package and us knowing how to do it by the August meeting. And that would give us easily a month and a half to make any corrections if we need to. So that's what you can expect on the leaf pickup. So we'll move on to the property tax levy presentation. And that right now is on the agenda for this month's board meeting, which is July 26th. And right now, Jed will be the lead presenter on this. Is that still workable for you, Jed?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so I think unless someone has strong feelings, I'm letting Jed do what he wants to do on his PowerPoint. Keep it this way, modify it. I would try to keep your presentation to 10-15 minutes, if that's possible,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, because they'll have it ahead of time. So I mean, my thought would just be to sorry, so make sure I got that in my calendar. Would just be to get through it, you know, because they'll have it in advance, they can look at it, and then I'll just hit the key things and leave it for questions. I'd rather answer questions than talk about things that people don't care about or want to gloss over anyway.
Right. I think there's some slides that are extremely important in there that I think, and maybe if other people, we can send emails to you, but I think there's certain slides there that probably take a little bit of time because I think they really, the graphs really tell a good story. So I think while they're going to have it ahead of time, I don't think it's a bad thing to pull out some of the more important slides that I think the board would find useful in future decision making. So I can shoot you the slides, I think, and you can just do what you want with that. On the matrix and the revenue side, those presentations, do you want me to take those, or are you comfortable with reading through those?
I would say you can take those or somebody else. I mean,
Okay.
I've read through that stuff, but you know, having never really, you know, gone through a city's budget, you know, I mean, I can't really add any value to, you know, explaining it.
Okay. All right. So I can take the comparison chart. Bobby, is it possible to get the revenue ones like Molly did where they're next to each other? This was a very difficult way of making points of looking at comparison when you had to go through all of Cross Plains and then look at Middleton, then jump all the way back up again. You know how she had them side by side?
So when I did a print preview on her spreadsheet, it was awful. Like I spent a lot of time actually formatting it to get it looking halfway decent. So if someone else wants to format it and send me a PDF, that's fine. But I
mean,
spent a lot of time already formatting it to.
You can take what you have here, shrink it, and have them side by side. Use the two
I couldn't
columns.
do it nice, like if someone else wants to play with it,
I would say the easiest way to do it is just to screenshot what she had, because I looked at this and I had the same thought as you, Jay. I was like, it'd be nice to see them next to each other. And then when I looked at hers again, you could probably just screenshot it and then put it into, make it into a PDF. And then they'd be right next to each other. That would be the easiest, simplest way. Obviously, you can't highlight it, move it, but
I don't think we need to do that.
then that's
Do you know how to do that, Bobby?
To do what?
What he's saying is bring up Molly's, screenshot it, and then you save that. So
Yeah, I guess
it's not a working
I don't
document that you
know.
can change, but it puts it together for visual, and that's what we really want. I don't expect the board to be playing with the numbers. If someone wants to, we can always send them the actual spreadsheet, but I think it loses its value the way we have it. It's just too hard to go back and forth.
I'll see if I can do it right now while we're talking.
Oh, okay. Otherwise,
you.
I can try to find somebody that has that.
Yeah, if Jed'll forward it to me, I'll play around with it too. I'm pretty good at spreadsheets. I'm just not finding.
I was gonna say, didn't Molly like send it to everybody?
Yeah, she sent it to everybody.
So
That
her,
doesn't mean I can find it. It's been
yeah,
a day.
but I guess I don't understand the change. She did it. Can't we just copy what she did? And
That
move-
doesn't
and-
mean the formatting will look nice. Excel is tricky when you want it to look pretty
Huh.
because
Oh.
it just keeps
It was
going on
doing
and on.
page
forever.
breaks like all over the place, and it was.
But how
Yeah.
did she get it to us where it was next to each other?
It was
was
just
an-
an Excel.
Yeah.
We were just looking at the Excel document, I
And you
believe.
can't just attach an Excel document?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, that's-
Speaking of which, on the breakdown page of the PowerPoint, when he's talking about that Cross Plains total tax rate is higher than every town, is that considered Cross Plains is considered a town, or is?
No, Cross Plains is a village.
Okay, because since there is also a town of Cross Plains, I was
Yeah.
not
And
totally sure.
that's not shocking at all, since towns don't offer much when it comes to services.
Part of the reason that was in there is one of the things that I looked at was I assumed that cities, because they had a larger population, was spreading out the tax burden between more people, which made it less expensive. And so then I was just comparing what smaller ones versus larger ones were like.
Oh, yeah. I also wonder, just out of curiosity, because remember the board was splitting up those condos so that they could be sold separately. I looked up the Zillow ad of it because I live about 2 blocks away from it. And I think the cost of houses has so greatly jumped in the last year. It's gonna be our fair market value rate is gonna be a bit higher because that property itself is going for over $330,000.
Yeah, we probably won't see that right away because my understanding, Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I thought the assessor said when we had the review that assessments weren't across the village going to be reassessed. Obviously, the ones with permits and new ones would be. So I don't think that'll have a huge impact right now.
Yeah, he thought the market impact wouldn't hit our tax base for like 22 or 23. There's always a lag. I think to Deb's point that we just have to pick a point in time when we compare them because it's always changing. We could assume that the change is relatively consistent across the county too. So I think we have to go to a point in time. I will second, while I got the floor here for a moment, I will second, I suggest you move the third point about the towns because those are really apples to oranges. Townships are not. really comparing, just services are wholly different in towns versus cities and villages. And then my other comment about this was, especially at the beginning, I felt like there was some redundancy in graphs, just two different types of graphs. I would just try to simplify it a little bit and get rid of a couple of duplicates, especially related to the graphs early on. And if you want specifics, Jed, I can type you offline.
Yeah, just send me a note.
Okay.
And is there anything else that people want to add? I mean, I obviously only picked the communities that had proximity right next to us. And I threw in Brooklyn because it was the worst as far as taxes were, but I didn't go and look anywhere else. So if people have other things that they want to.
I think what you have done definitely illustrates what needs to be illustrated. And I think the next steps that we've taken will also show that there's one, after looking and reviewing the revenue sheet, and there was, in my opinion, there was no smoking gun in that to really fall on. I'm going to try to see if I can find what percentage of both Middleton and city, the taxes is coming from residential versus non-residential. I think that's the last piece to look at. And then I think the board probably has all the pieces.
Yeah, my other comment is about the goals and about the conclusion that really this report is coming from Jed. And is this report supposed to be coming from the finance committee or Jed specifically?
Well, it's from the finance. He was
Okay, well, but then if that's the case, then reading it, while working on this project, my goal, and Jed did all the work. I get it, and I appreciate all the work. Don't get me wrong, but it says, notes. Well, I assumed, and then conclusion, in my opinion. If it's coming from the committee, we need to change some of this. If it's coming from Jed and his personal opinion, then I think it's fine.
That's a very good point.
Because I don't share some of the conclusions, or at least I think we'd have to spend a little more time coming to agreement and then voting on the conclusions at least, and then it comes from the committee. And even if I don't agree with them, I will agree to, the committee will vote on it, and the committee will send this forward.
And I guess that was my point. I mean, the packet or what was presented was to the committee, which was, I was assigned that part. I did that. And then I thought, and what I said to people is, if people disagree or need more information, like, come back to me and we'll look at something else, or other people can vet it or go through it. And everybody was happy with it. And that was the end of it.
Yeah, I can't say that I've reviewed all this until this last week. Whether I'd seen it before or not, I guess I can't confirm. I'm still only my second meeting on the committee, but I will say that I think the facts are facts, and I don't think they need, conclusions or interpretation. And I'm totally happy with what's there in that regard. But if we want to talk goals the goal maybe even was set by the committee before I came on. So really the conclusion is where I would go. And I'm not going to be at that board meeting. Unfortunately, I have family vacation that was scheduled a long time ago and I just can't make it. But I will provide my opinion then to the board before the meeting about about where I think that maybe the loss is here. And just for that, I'll share it with you all here.
Yeah.
I think that, and I'm gonna have to go and look at my own copy of this, so I've got it. The conclusion, disproportionately higher tax rates. I think that even though there may be a greater tax rate, I think that the devil, and I agree, I feel like the facts sort of bear that out. But the devil for me, or not the devil, but the important part for me and maybe most residents is where and why are the taxes higher? Where is it going, and why is it going there? And I think that those are the questions that aren't addressed in here. And I think that if we look at some of these other places, we can sort of quickly and easily decide that, hey, I don't want to live in Brooklyn, but for other reasons, or I don't want to live in Mount Horeb for other reasons, or Black Earth for that matter. So why are people still choosing to live here? And I guess that's the discussion that I would like to have with, and maybe that's more of a board discussion. But say, like, I don't like paying more taxes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to say let's pay more taxes, but I am here to say that compared to any of these other places, I am willing to pay a higher tax rate. And I think, 4,000 other people are too, willing to pay a higher tax rate because of what I'm getting for it. And it's the what I'm getting for it part that is not addressed here, and that's probably outside the scope of this study anyways, but should be discussed at some point.
No, that's exactly what our thought was. This is the first step. Now go down to the expenses where we compare Cross Plains to Middleton. That is showing you where our money is being spent, right? That's total expenses, and we broke it out in a number of ways. And then you look at the next section is the revenue comparison. So we are spending, I agree with you, our taxes is high, but the question is, like you said, why? So we did a comparison chart to see where we're at. And besides debt service, we're very comparable or better than Middleton. Now, parks look that way, and that's the one thing I added, was because I did get some feedback on that, because parks is kind of a semi enterprising agency because it does bring in its own revenue to offset its costs. So I did put that in there. And then when you look at that on both Middleton and Cross Plains, we're both at about the same rate, the percentage. So Kevin,
that's
we
okay.
did do that. That is the next step. And then when you look at revenue, is it, for example, Middleton able to do it cheaper because they have other revenues that we don't have? Like they have a room tax. We don't have that. Are there other things that maybe they have revenues that we can be looking at to bring revenues into the village outside of property? So you are exactly right. The first part was just to get us here. Then we went deeper. And then I want to go one level deeper to really break down where the property tax is coming from.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Thank you, Jay. That helps. And I'm sorry if I'm revisiting things you all have talked about.
No.
What about the conclusion then on this document? Then maybe the conclusion is what maybe we need to vote on a conclusion, or maybe the conclusion is just that we move this slide and then, or maybe summarize it more than a conclusion, because it's not a conclusion. It's just one part of the story, but a summary of the comparison, I think would be fine here. And then leave out the opinions, because of what you just said, Jay. I think it's important to bring in that aspect of it. And then I would ask the committee to vote on it.
Yes, I agree with you on this, that we're trying to stay away from us giving opinions. We're supposed to be giving the information, and I think we have that. So I think you're probably right that a summary and keep it in as a general, as the village versus an individual would probably be a better way of doing it. Are you okay with that, Jed?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kevin seems to have a big problem with the disproportionately part of it. I mean, the individual and the conclusion, I mean, I can understand that point. I mean, I think disproportionately is fair. I mean, when you look at Middleton, I mean, we're paying, what is it, 26% more than they are. But Jay, you and I worked on this together. I mean, if you want to write the summary, I mean, we did this together. I mean, you did a separate part of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into where I write a summary and then, people say, well, that's still your opinion. I mean, I can go through the numbers and the facts, or I can take it out. I guess I just don't want to do something and then you come back and say, well, that's still not what we want.
Right.
Well, it says submitted by Jed Henry right there. I mean,
Yeah, but that's to us.
Yeah, I know. But that could, no matter what, if this comes from the committee, the ayes and myes all have to be changed, and this should be coming from the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have agreement on that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree.
Okay. And then we should, then if that's the case, then we should vote on approving the planner or approving the report or not for the board as presented. Is there
All
an
right.
action like on the agenda item? Is there an action? I can't recall.
Uh,
There's not on our agenda. No.
no.
Well, can we
Um,
even take action on that?
Well, first of all, we can't, there's no really sense of taking action because we don't have a finished product done, right? So what do we, so I'm not worried about that part of it. I'm trying to in my head now think, do we have to kind of just come together to do something like next week or the following week before the board? Or can this move to August? Because
Or-
this needs, I think this needs to be presented prior to the discussion of the operating budget. I think this is part of the information, should. And that discussion is in September, correct?
Yes.
So why don't we do this? I will move this to the August board meeting. And Jed and I will work on this and we'll bring it back to the August finance meeting. Does that sound workable for everybody?
Fine with me.
Yep.
Everybody?
Sure.
Okay, this I think is we've put a lot of time into this, and this is, I think, very important information for the board to see. So I really want it, I don't want it to do after the budget. It needs to be ahead of the budget, so there's a foundation for it. So, all right, so I guess here's what we're gonna do. Jed and I will work on this report, part of it. If I don't know if anybody had any luck on the spreadsheet of revenues. If not, I'll try to call. And I guess
I
I'm
got
not.
it. And I sent it to everybody.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Thank
I don't
you,
know how
Jed.
to get in and out of this stuff, so I'll take a look at it. So it's work, we can do it then, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks fine.
Okay, so we'll put that as part of it. We'll send it to you. I'll put this on as a discussion and approval for the August meeting of ours, and I'll put it on the board for the August board meeting. Does that sound like a plan?
Yep. And that
Yeah.
spreadsheet, Jed, did you send it out to the committee, everybody, or was that?
Yeah, I
just-
sent it to everybody. I replied to Bobby's email about the meeting tonight, so everybody should have gotten it.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Anything that anybody wants to talk about on the expense matrix or the revenues, since we have this up at a, so we can get it all done at one time? I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's on how much people want to actually read. Good?
Yeah, I just want to extend my appreciation for all the hard work that went into it. Nothing I said meant anything against the hard work. Jed, I'll send something directly to you about the some of the areas where I just think it's, simplify it just for consumption's sake in a short period of time, but that's it.
Yeah, Jay, and some of the earlier comments you had about some of the slides, the quote and some of those things, I mean, there's no reason to leave those in. I mean, that was kind of more background, some of that stuff can
All right.
go as well, and you and I can work on that.
Okay, that sounds really good, really good. All right, I heard Tim in there.
Yep.
Tim, are you here?
Yep,
Part of
I'm
it?
back. I got in finally.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're still good. We've gone over the leaf pickup, but you're still willing to put together the letter to the residents in the test area. That would be under the education part of it.
Correct, yes. I'll
All
work
right.
on that.
Okay, if we can have a draft done by our August meeting, we're gonna try to have that whole package done,
Okay.
all right?
My only concern, and I caught most of that, I think it's also somehow when you talk with Jerry, or maybe it's not Jerry's issue, but this is a learning curve, I think, for the Public Works as well. So I'd hate to see it get discouraged because it didn't go, there's little problems with it that they didn't expect, or somebody had a stick in their leaf pile or a dead plant, that doesn't discourage what we're trying to do here. I think we need to educate everybody, and maybe they have to be a note made or something, but I just hope we look at this in a positive thing, from the people picking
I
the
think-
leaves up to the people putting them out to the curb.
Absolutely. I think that's the whole reason of doing a pilot program,
Yep.
is to see what problems and then try to work them out before you try to do something village wide. So I think that's basically the main basis of doing a pilot program, is
Yep.
to exactly do that. Try to not get people discouraged, because if there's a big problem, we only have to deal with it in a small area versus the whole village. So no,
Okay.
I think we'll be okay with that. That's why when I do the logs, I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible, but it's important that we get an idea of what problems they're running into.
Sure.
All right. So I just wanted to make sure you're okay with that, and I'll get a hold of Molly and see if she can put together a survey.
Okay.
That's kind of how we broke it down. And you heard that
August
I'm
4th.
meeting with Jerry on Friday, right?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we will move to the transportation utility update.
I have one question about the revenue comparisons, or
Sure.
maybe it's a comment, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
I know that a lot of stuff in the past has been combined to make the budget easier to use, I guess. But looking at the Middleton one, especially with the revenues, you get a much better idea with more detail. And I don't want to cause more work for Bobby, so I apologize for what I'm about to say. Is it unreasonable to suggest that, especially when we're trying to find ways to possibly decrease taxes and revenue and increase revenue, that the village goes back to a more detailed format for tracking all their expenses and revenue?
I guess what do you mean more detail?
When you look at licenses versus Cross Plains versus Middleton, we just have liquor, other business and occupational. We don't have things like cigarettes, dog licenses, permits for special events, such and like that could be, that are revenue sources that we just don't know about when you compare it to Cross Plains. Are we just not getting that here?
No, they're
or
within these, yeah.
they're
We just don't
broken
have a line
down?
item that says dog licenses. Like I think it's in
Right,
the
it's-
non-business licenses, actually.
But I think we
Right.
can break that out farther if we realize that that section is a big difference in budget or revenue or expenditure, that we can then break that out. I mean, I think that's a next step down from what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, just I know Middleton has more people, but our non-business licenses is $3,000 less than just their dog licenses. So, and when we talked about Soft Plains Plumbing not getting their permits for such things like water heaters, I would not be surprised to see that the village is losing out on a lot of permits and fees that they're supposed to be getting by people in the village. So it's just something am curious about.
I mean, I think for a lot of our licenses and permits, the fees we collect are minimal. Like I don't want to have 100 accounts with $10 in them each. Like it makes sense to bundle them all and, you know,
Well, can I
as
ask you
far as
something?
like special event permits, you know, if they're $50 and we get 5 of them a year, like I don't want that to be one line item.
But let me ask you something. When you bring the funds in, like dog, are they coded and this is just a group of them put together? I mean, do you know, like, would you easily be able to pull up how many dog licenses we sold versus how many event permits? Is it at least broken down that way?
Like
And it
if I
just
would run
doesn't-
a general ledger report, it does say dog license or special event thing, but it's
Okay.
not in a separate general ledger account. Like
No,
there's
okay.
more
but
than
you-
one type of fee in a general ledger account, but they're labeled
Right,
within
so
that
if we
account.
wanted to know how many dog licenses were sold in 2021, you could tell us.
Yeah,
Okay. See, I think Deb, we have that information. I just don't think it was put in this, you know, it's not a, it's not a major item type thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
like their
that's-
cigarette licenses is $2,100. Ours is like we sell 3 of them a year. You know, we had 3 people apply for them for this next year at $50 a piece. You know, our $150 versus 2,000. Like,
I'm not suggesting making new funds for all of them, just so that I mean, it is an area where the village is probably missing out on even a small part of revenue for something to look at. I mean, even the few dollars here and there adds up when it's over.
yeah,
the
like we
people.
charge for a lot of, you know, I'm looking at their licenses and permits. Like we have a fee schedule and all these things are listed on our fee schedule. So they're just not broken out so detailed in our budget.
But in
We do charge
accounting,
for all of these things.
right, but in accounting, you have it. It's just not in the reporting, you combine these.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So if we were looking to dig deeper, we could ask for a report and it would break this out. We just don't do it as a standard budget item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then at some point, I assume we're just going to ask for that report.
Yeah, we can do that. Like I say, I think the numbers, once these developments start really going full bore, that you'll see those numbers go up, obviously, because they'll need these permits for building the houses and stuff. So I think the
Well,
numbers.
yeah, I was just using the example of building permits because, as you may remember, I sent you an email because I got a new water heater and didn't know I was supposed to have a permit until it was mentioned at the village board meeting a month after I got a new water heater.
There is clearly an educational component that we have to do in the village.
Right.
That would help bring in some revenue. I think that's clearly something we need to do, and that is clearly something we can talk about, I think, at the budget, you know, part, because I love to know how many people we have a ton of dogs, and I'd really like to know how many dog licenses we're selling.
Right. And when another interesting piece of information to track when the new houses begin, because not only is more revenue going to come in, but also, you know, EMS and all those services will also increase greatly. So
Yep.
I
That is-
remember Tony talking about once we hit 5,000 population level, there's all sorts of criteria that the village is going to have to do for the police department. So,
Just so you know, we've been watching it. We pretty much meet all the standards.
well, yeah, I mean, but
I
we're
know
getting closer and closer.
there
So,
isn't a requirement, you know, we have a police department, you know, we have a fire coverage, and those are, they're written more broadly than saying you have to have 8 cops and you have to have an engine and a ladder truck. They don't have it written that way. But you're right, at 5,000, the village there are certain statutory requirements, but I can tell you by looking at those already that I would say we're at 95% or higher already.
That's good.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, the big one is we just have to go to 24-hour coverage then, right?
Well,
I mean,
see,
you have to add a
and that's
couple-
what people are missing. We're at 24-hour coverage. The
But the
difference
sheriff's
is,
covering it.
yeah, the sheriff's department covers it when we don't have on. So we have, and it's not an extra charge for us. It's part of the sheriff's department's responsibility. It's where it would be where if we chose not to have a police department and the sheriff was taking it, not contracting with them, but that's just part of their territory, then we would have to do either contract with them or get a police department. Because there needs to be that control, local control. But, you know, we have a police commission already. That's one of the other requirements, that 5,000. We already have that. Well, anyways, we're kind of getting off the topic, but Deb, you bring up a point that I think is something we can certainly add on to this, that there needs to be an educational component for sure for the fees that the village has in place and probably are under collecting.
I got my cat licenses. They never
Yeah.
leave the house. Nor will they wear their license tags.
Well, that's good. All right. Let's go to transportation, utility, and it should say impact fee update.
So I've been trying to get information from Columbus and not having much luck. And I'm mostly curious about them because they've tabled the issue to discuss later. And I am very curious to know why they tabled it. There is a company that is very big into doing these Rudek Meek, I don't know how to pronounce it, that has some very good videos and facts about doing it. So hopefully by next month, Kevin and I will have something more concrete.
If I can make a suggestion,
Uh-huh.
I would check with Baraboo because they put
Okay.
on a presentation. They have it, and they put a presentation on at a conference of cities on it. So that would be one that obviously is for it. And then I think it was last year or the year before, the town of Middleton voted it down. And there was quite a bit written. At the time, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it, but there were numerous articles in the local paper on the pros and cons that they looked at. And I couldn't tell you why they voted it down, but I know they did a lot of research into it. So then you would get both sides of it. And I would think Baraboo would be I'm guessing they have a PowerPoint presentation and a bunch of handouts because they did a statewide training on it. And I'm not sure what kind of, if town of Middleton actually did some type of research, that they would be able to share. It was in a report or something like that. I just don't remember, but I do remember, I can tell you, those are the two different sides. One voted no, one has it.
Okay. I will.
That might save you a lot of time.
Yeah, I think we have the Baraboo one already in our folder or in our file.
Yeah.
So Deb and I started a Google document that we're sharing back and forth and dumping documents in there. And I'm pretty sure the Baraboo presentation is in there.
Oh, okay.
But I don't recall the town. You said the town or city of Middleton, Jay?
No, town of Middleton.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised any town would be able to do a transportation utility, but maybe that would make sense. It seems a little bit at odds because there's not a lot of people driving through a town, but whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was the town.
and then
You could
the
check
city of
with
Neenah was the other one that has gone through and actually passed it. So city of Neenah passed one.
Oh, okay.
As far as we can tell, right, Deb? But yeah, we thought the most applicable was Columbia County or city of Columbus. I think I could also try, and I hadn't thought of this, Deb, till just now. I could call the League of Municipalities and see what they have to say.
They have
Yeah.
I read an article in their magazine.
Yeah, I remember reading that too, and I
Yeah.
hadn't thought of that. So maybe I'll reach out to the author of that article, or reach right out to what's his name, Jerry.
Okay.
Over there.
Well, we appreciate your work on that. I think that's just another
So-
tool.
Then why don't we make a commitment to try to get a summary to the committee as best we can, unless we come into with more headaches by next meeting. And if you're running into a dead end in Columbus, what about seeing if either Bobby or Bill, maybe with their professional contacts over there,
Yeah.
have a way to reach, colleague to colleague, because sometimes that helps as opposed to a citizen of another village.
If I can't get a hold of him tomorrow, I will try for that. Because unfortunately, I've been focusing on moving one of my children the last couple of weeks, so everything else has been hitting the wayside.
All right, well, I appreciate the work and look forward to that. All right, our last discussion and possible action on the finance policies that we reviewed at the last meeting. Bobby has made the changes. Is everybody comfortable with the changes that were made? And if so, we'll move it on to the board for July.
I'm fine with it.
What did you mean by subsequent years instead of, with the leftovers of the debt? Why wouldn't you just toss it towards the debt right away? I have to remember what page I saw that on.
Well, we don't make extra payments, so it just, we'd pay, like, instead of borrowing money, then, or not borrowing, levying money the next year to make a debt payment, we would just use cash. Yeah, we don't make extra debt payments. It would just be instead of levying for the payments in the next year.
Oh,
Is
we're
that-
not allowed to pay ahead? What a bummer.
Our interest rates are so ridiculously low.
Yeah, but debt is debt, and then, you go on to the next thing. That's all I was curious about, so otherwise it's good.
Everybody else okay?
Well, yeah, why don't we make a motion? I'll make a motion that we approve these as presented and forward them to the board for their consideration.
All right.
Are we
do I
doing
have
one
these-
at a time, or?
No, do you want them one at a time, or we can just do?
Well,
them
I
they're
both?
just
listed
looked
on the
there-
agenda as A and B, so I didn't know if that.
Oh,
Yeah, since they were clumped together, I put them together, but I'm happy to do them separately.
I think, why don't we just name the two policies in that motion, then we're fine.
Okay.
All right,
What is our agenda? Does it say discussion and approval, and then would
It
we
does,
forward?
the possible action, yes.
it says discussion and possible action.
So would our action actually go to the finance committee, since we're kind of like a subgroup, aren't we? Or I'm just asking the question. Or
No,
do
we are,
just-
yeah, we're approving these to move to the board
Okay,
as a finance committee.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed on the agenda is they're still listed as, would we rename these policies with would give them new dates on the policy numbers?
Yeah, she's made those.
Okay, but they're in the policy or in the agenda as 2020 and 2015. Does that matter?
No, well,
So they do get,
generally,
I don't know.
No.
They should get new policy numbers?
Yeah,
I
they
don't
should.
think they should, because you want to keep track, so they keep, that's the original. And then down below, I saw you change the date on revised. Okay, when they're signed, so you changing it.
Yeah,
from
and then
the-
you would put another
Yes,
revision here.
yes, that's how you're supposed to do policies. Otherwise you lose them. So you kind of, it's odd that the village does the numbering on policies. It should really just say debit management
Yeah, right.
policy, and then you keep track of the revisions at the end, like we have.
Well, then why don't, can we take that huge step then with the village and say, we like, will approve the, or we would recommend the board approve the fund balance policy as revised with the new date? And get rid of the number in the policy?
I guess I'd rather.
No,
bring
no,
that
down
up as a
below, it
board.
would still say approved and revised, we'd get rid of the.
No, I agree what you're saying, but what I'd like to do is just do it village-wide. Have all our policies just be policies, and then you revise, you put the dates on revising, because we always put that date on when it's been developed. I'm with you that we eliminate this because it says a policy number, but really when you look at when we file, you'll be looking for it under fund balance policy. I think we should get rid of that, but if we're gonna do it, it should be across the board, not just for these two, because now we're running two systems. I think we
Chance
just,
to be the tip of that arrow.
what's that?
I said, we can make the start of the change right now.
Well, I just think, I'm just worried that it's gonna get hung up because people are gonna say, no, we like the policies. What about the other policies? Those
Alright.
aren't noticed yet, so we can't make a change. I just think it's cleaner to say, for now on, we're gonna eliminate all the policy quote numbers, go by policy, and then do a revision, tracking them by the revision.
So as a committee, can't we just make that recommendation to the board separate of this item?
We could, but it's not noticed on our agenda.
I mean, we don't have to do it today, obviously.
Yeah. I just don't think it's a big deal, and I'll talk to Bill. Maybe it's just an administrative thing. I don't think the board ever approved naming policies this way.
Well, I'll reiterate my motion, which is to approve the debt management policy as presented today and recommended for approval by the board.
All right, you're gonna do two motions then?
I'll do two.
Okay. Do I have a second on that one?
I'll second.
All right.
Second,
Any discussion?
Can
on
you
it?
slide up to the top of that, please? Is there a
Say it
spelling
again?
error on the top of that? Is there responsibility spelled wrong up in the top? There should be another I in there. And so,
Responsibly.
oh, responsibly, I'm sorry. You're right. Responsibly meet the village's capital. Okay, thank you.
It looked weird to me too.
All right, so I have a motion. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All opposed, same. All right. Do I have a motion to accept the fund balance policy?
I'll make a motion to accept the fund balance policy as presented and recommend approval by the board.
All
I'll
right,
second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same. All right, thank you very much. Any future agenda items? I think we got our August meeting, I think is pretty packed right now. Is there something in the future that people want to work in?
Jay, we talked last month about me comparing the fire departments. Is that something you want me to do now, or should that wait?
I guess I'll leave it up to you. I don't think I think right now our priority is to get that presentation set.
Okay.
But if,
I'm not clamoring for things to do, so.
okay, why don't we just hold off and let's get some of these things tucked away and set. It seems like we got two really big ones that I always worry that sometimes they get bigger and more complex than we think they're going to be.
Okay, works for me.
All right. And again, at any time you can send something to me. All right. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same. All right. Very good. Thank you, everybody. You guys
Right.
have a good week.
Thanks,
You
guys.
too.